Welcome to this Back to Basics session, Making Accessibility Simple. Today I'm going to show you how easy it can be to ensure your Canvas pages are formatted for accessibility. Let's first put this in the context of the learner. A screen reader device is used by vision-impaired students to help them by reading whatever it is on the document or web page they're accessing. It can do things like jump from section heading to section heading so they can scan a page as we do visually, or tell them when there's a list and how many items, or when there's an image and what it's showing. The screen reader device works by using the code running in the background, and it can't do that unless the page is formatted properly to begin with. Though accessibility considerations also encompass auditory, motor, and cognitive challenges, what we're going to talk about today primarily relates to the use of a screen reader device. We'll touch briefly on color, which impacts those with low vision or color vision deficiency. We'll also talk about captions and transcripts, which benefit students with hearing issues. The other issue I want to mention up front is that making content accessible helps all students, not just students with a specific disability. For example, how many of you use captions at times, even though you're not hearing impaired? Chunking page content with headings, lists, and tables helps all learners scan and comprehend content better, not just those using screen reader devices. And providing content in multiple modalities, again, supports all students, not just those with cognitive or processing issues. There are 7 things to be aware of when creating accessible content. I call them the Big 7. Headings, images, lists, links, tables, color, and captions. We'll go over each one so you know how to handle it. Let's head into Canvas to take a look. Reading on the web is different than reading a book. Not only are most of us in the habit of skimming web pages, the online medium itself is harder for the brain and eye to process. If we want our students to actually read and absorb the content we're giving them in online courses, we need to apply good web usability guidelines. The most important principle is to remember to chunk your content. Section headings, lists, images and graphics, and even tables can all serve to break up text into manageable segments. When those elements are properly formatted for a screen reader device, it can alert the user to the presence of headings, lists, images, and tables so that learner can scan the page as well. Check out this page with text, but no images, no real formatting. Just notice what it's like to try and read it. On this second page, which has the exact same text as the previous one, I've added headings, images, and a list. Notice how much easier it is to make sense of the information than this first plain version. But even this chunked page, if the page elements aren't formatted properly, a screen reader device wouldn't be able to interpret the content correctly. That means all of this will still look like a big block of text to the screen reader device, just like the plain version did. I'm going to show you how to properly format those 7 items we talked about in the beginning. We'll start with headings. If headings are not properly formatted, the screen reader user has to read line by line from the beginning of the page every time they're on the page. When headings are set up correctly, a screen reader device allows the student to scan the heading titles and jump from one section to the next. When I open the editor, you can see the heading structure. Page titles are automatically formatted as heading 1. You don't have to worry about that. For each section of your page, the titles of the sections should be tagged as H2, as they are on this page. You can always tell how a particular text is styled by putting your cursor in the middle of the text and checking in the Rich Content Editor text block dropdown. Here I can see this first line of text is an H2. If I move my cursor down here, I can see now that that is paragraph text. I'll put my cursor in the next heading and I can again see it's a heading 2. If you have subsections within these main sections, on a syllabus for example, those section headings would be H3. If your H3 section has its own subsection, that heading title would be an H4. And you can format those simply by using the drop-down in Canvas. Think of heading structure as an outline of your content, with heading 2 being the most common heading choice, and all other headings only used to indicate subsections within the main sections. You do not want to choose the heading level based on the size of the font. So if I don't like this big font and I decide, oh, I'm going to make that a heading 4, that will mess up the reading experience of a student using a screen reader device. You have to make all of your main headings heading 2 and subheadings heading 3 and subheadings heading 4. If I don't want this to be big, once it's tagged as a heading 2, I can highlight it and change the font size. I wouldn't recommend it. It means you have to do it manually for every heading you've got, and so I would recommend you just learn to love the default sizes. Images come in 2 varieties. Those that are important to understanding the content on the page, and those that are there for visual interest. When a screen reader device comes across an image, it will say, image, and then read the alternative text description, usually just called alt text, that's been provided. It's important that the alt text be meaningful, not just a file name or a generic phrase. I'll click on this top image to highlight it, and then select Image Options. From the slider panel, I can easily see if my alt text is properly descriptive or not. If it isn't, I can just edit it right here in the alt text field, or if the image is there purely for visual interest, I could mark it as decorative. Click Done, and that's it. When a list is set up properly, a screen reader device will tell a student, for example, list with 3 items. First bullet, student services. If I create what's called a faux list by typing a dash, for example, or typing 1 period space, it's just read as regular text. 1 period space, student services. The student doesn't know that it's meant to be a list. To make a list, I can simply highlight the items that I want and then come up to the Rich Content Editor list option. I have bulleted up top, or if it is a sequence or a hierarchy, you can use the numbered list. Simple as that. When a screen reader device encounters a link on a page, it alerts the student by saying link and then reading out the link text. If the link text is a URL, like it is with this Zoom link, it will read it character by character, since there are really no recognizable words. The student will hear link, https://. As you might imagine, that's not only irritating, it's not useful. The student has no idea where that link is leading. It's as simple to fix as putting your cursor anywhere in the link text, selecting the Link Options button, and in the text field, deleting what is currently the URL and putting in whatever descriptive phrase would make sense. Here, I can actually copy the descriptive phrase that I already had, go back to Link Options, and replace the URL in the text field with the My Virtual Office text. Click Done, and that's it. For many learners, color is an important visual aid. It captures attention and creates visual appeal, as with this Get Started button. When used well, color can help emphasize key points. When overused, it can create confusion, fatigue, and even cognitive overload. If you use color either for text or as a highlight, you need to be sure the contrast is sufficient for low vision folks. This graphic shows you which default font colors in the new Rich Content Editor have appropriate contrast against a white background, the image on the left. As you can see, some colors work for bigger font sizes but aren't good for the 12-point paragraph text. On the right are colors that will work as highlight for black text. If you stick to the colors with the stars, you'll always be within guidelines. The other issue with color is if you use it to indicate meaning in some way, for example, telling students the red questions are required. A color deficient or low vision student likely won't be able to discern which questions are red. It's okay to use color, but you want to be sure and use a secondary indicator as well. In our example, you might mark red text and an asterisk to indicate the required questions. The same with highlighting for emphasis. Low vision or color deficient students may not be able to distinguish the text if the highlight color doesn't have sufficient contrast. Be sure to use a light color, one of the ones indicated here, and also italicize or bold the text as well. I like to do all three. You can't always trust the Canvas Accessibility Checker, or the little man as we call it, for headings or alt text, but he's very good with color and tables. Now we can visually see that this heading color doesn't have sufficient contrast, but if I click the little man or PopeTech, which I'll introduce in a minute, either one will help you find an appropriate color. The slider comes out. I can use this little magic circle, and as I move it, watch the apply button. When I get to a color that has sufficient contrast, the button becomes active. I don't have to figure it out. I can just find it, click apply, and I'm done. Very cool. Tables are a visual medium. We can immediately discern all kinds of information by a quick glance at a table. But imagine you're not seeing the structure and organization of the table. You have to listen to it, cell by cell. To facilitate comprehension for a visually impaired student, a table should always have what are called headers. These identify the category for the data that's being displayed in that row or in that column. Tables are not recommended for page design, like putting an image next to text in a two-celled table. Those will be read as data tables, which don't have the necessary structural elements for accessibility. Again, the little man comes to the rescue. When I click him, first I'll bypass the color because we want to go to the tables. He'll highlight the table, and first thing he does is tell me I need to add a caption, which is what tells the user what the table is about. Click apply, and then he tells me I have to set the headers. In this case, because my content is laid out in columns, I will select header row, which means the top row will be formatted as the title of each column. So if your content is in columns, you'll use a header row. If your content is in rows, you would indicate a header column. Make sense? Be aware that table headers are not the same as section headings, so don't format this top row as an H2 and think that makes it accessible. Click apply, and that table is done. The last item in the Big 7 is captions for video and transcripts for audio. Video is a powerful teaching tool with big payoffs, but bad captioning undermines the learning of many students. Remember that closed captions benefit not just students who are hearing impaired, but also those who are multilingual, those who prefer reading to listening, and those who use captions to reinforce what they're learning. Instructional videos must be captioned. It doesn't matter if the video has been created by you or found on YouTube. If it's being used as part of your course content, it needs to be captioned. YouTube's auto-generated captioning is not Section 508 compliant because it's done by a machine, has no punctuation to provide sentence structure, and typically has numerous word matching errors. Watch this demo with the captions on and the sound off. Does this make sense to you? Is your learning perhaps being hindered by the captions? Watching at least 30 seconds of a video will give you a sense of whether the captions are accurate or not. Transcripts are a text version of narration or dialogue from audios and podcasts. On-screen captions, not a transcript, is best for video. Because transcripts are separate from the video itself, the student has to keep moving their eyes back and forth from video to transcript. Very labor-intensive and not conducive to comprehension. There is no single tool that's going to find all the accessibility errors for you. It's best to approach accessibility with a set of tools. So again, your first best thing to do is to learn the Big 7 so you know how to format properly from the get-go. Then you've got the little man in Canvas. Plus, College of the Canyons just added a nifty little additional checker tool called PopeTech, which I'll show you in a moment, and you'll be able to use those supplementary tools to confirm that all is well with your Canvas pages. And there are some things that will always require a manual check. There's no tool, for example, that will tell you which phrase should be used as a heading, or what the proper alt text for a particular image should be. You also have to manually check for accurate captions. We've created a handy little course with all the information about accessibility that we just talked about, plus a lot more how-tos. So 3 months from now, when you think, gosh, I know they said something about writing good alt text, but I can't remember how to do it, you can come back to this public shell and get a little refresher. There's a lot to accessibility, and it takes time and practice to become adept at it. Be kind to yourself as you're learning. All right, let's talk about the PopeTech tool. You're going to love how easy it makes it to check your Canvas course for accessibility. The PopeTech tool is an accessibility checker that is conveniently built right into the Canvas page editor. You'll find the PopeTech button down next to the Cancel and Save buttons at the bottom of the page editor. When you click it, it will immediately scan the page and open the Instructor Guide slider window to provide you with a report of errors and alerts. It will not only identify potential issues with the page formatting, it provides tips and tools to help you fix the issues. We've created another resource on PopeTech as part of the What's New in Canvas shell. You'll find a page with a set of just-in-time video tutorials on using the PopeTech tool. I guarantee PopeTech is going to be your new best friend. It's such a time saver.